Hey guys, so today we've got a special video. Pretty much, I'm just going to be sharing my entire testimony of how I came to know Jesus and how really I came to improve myself through faith and through fitness. So let me first start out with growing up. My family was what my pastor calls CEO Christians, which is Christmas and Easter only. Those were pretty much the only times we showed up to church. A lot of that was because I played travel baseball all year round, and so I had tournaments that would have me playing in games far away every Sunday morning, and so we would just end up not being able to go to church. So we would only really find the time to do it when we absolutely had to, which, unfortunate. So really it was like that up until I graduated. Basically, I was a lukewarm Christian. I would tell people I was Christian, but I didn't really have a relationship with Jesus. I had never read the Bible. I had never really done anything outside of go to church every once in a while and pray on occasion when I wanted something. So that was really all the experience I had up until graduating. And going off to college, obviously I was surrounded in a world of sin, and I gave into it. I'm a college student at University of Georgia in Athens. Big culture of partying, going downtown, drinking, all that stuff, and that's exactly what I did. So I did not have a very good relationship with Jesus, and shortly after I went off to college, I started dating this girl that I went to high school with, and she was one grade behind me, and I had been talking to her right around the time I graduated. We started hanging out, and then we eventually started dating, and I didn't go to high school too far from Georgia, so it was we still could make it work. It was only 40 minutes, and so that was fine. And she was a Christian, and she was actually a Christian to where she had a relationship with Jesus. She volunteered at church. She was, she was good in her faith. She had a serious relationship with the Lord. And so throughout that time, I felt like I kind of distracted her from having the relationship that she wanted, because I think, my stupid, immature college self, I was giving into this culture of drinking and partying and going out and not even remotely trying to chase after having a relationship with him. And we started going to church together, Sunday mornings, but it was still just that for me. It was still just going to church, and then outside of that, nothing else really. And it's just looking back on it, it makes me feel so shitty about who I was, because she was trying to push me towards Christ, and I just was too immature to be vulnerable enough to open up my heart and let him in. I was too selfish in my worldly desires to give them up for him and try to build that relationship. And she ended up serving at the church that me and her went to, and she wanted me to serve, and I said no. And it's hard even now still for me to really wrap my head around this, but I was not a good person. I didn't want to serve. I didn't feel like I was in a place where I could serve, and I told her that, and I said, I don't think I'm ready. But obviously I just didn't know what I was talking about at the time. I didn't have a real relationship with Jesus, and so I didn't really understand that serving is something that he calls us to do as Christians. It's a huge part of the relationship, but I was immature. I didn't understand that. And so I said no, and she did it without me, and that just makes me feel so sad thinking about it right now. But I didn't have that maturity, so I couldn't take that next step. And eventually, after a little over a year of being together, it started to become an issue where I wasn't letting him in, and she wanted to progress our relationship, and we couldn't do that because she was serious about her faith and I was not. And I was serious about her is the thing. Like, I loved her more than anything. I loved her more than God, which was exactly the problem. But I couldn't take that next step and make it work. And so we decided to go on a break, and that was in an effort for me to hopefully find God and really actually give my life to Jesus for real, and not just like be along for church and be along for Bible studies and stuff, but to seriously seek after a relationship with him. And so obviously we all know what the break usually ends up being. I was pretty certain that this break was gonna be permanent. It was depressing. It was a depressing time. I started, giving into other vices like alcohol and weed and like going out, and it actually, for the first like month, I'd say it had the adverse effect, and I became even worse because I was depressed and I was just trying to distract myself with other things, other vices, and it's just like not good. But when the new year came this year, I decided that I needed to make a change, and what I was doing was not cutting it. It was not taking my life anywhere, and I had no purpose. I felt like I didn't know what I was meant to do with my life. I felt like I was just living to see the next day. And ultimately, it was time for me to grow up. I said to myself, I can either give in to this culture that I'm living in, this world of sin, or I can turn away from it and I can be better. In the beginning of 2025, me and my best friend, Cody, we joined a small group at his church. At that point, I felt like I was nervous to go into the small group because I thought like, I'm going to be in there with a bunch of dudes who are way more serious about their faith right now, and they probably know like everything in the Bible, and I barely even know the Bible at all. And I just, just these stupid worries that we think when we go into a new situation. I was like, I'm not going to be smart enough to go in and have a conversation, right? But it's really not like that. It's really just a community of people, anyone my age, looking to better themselves in their faith. That was something that I was missing up until that point. I never really understood the communal aspect of working on your faith. I thought that I could develop it by myself, but it doesn't work like that, and it's never going to work out. And so that was huge. That was huge in really opening my eyes to how other people dealt with problems in their life that were serious about their faith, and how I could do the same as well. So started going to small group every single week. I started reading my Bible on my own time, doing daily devotionals, and really chasing after him for the first time ever, because I had nobody else. Like, I had my best friend, but he lived over by where my ex-girlfriend had lived, 40 minutes away from me, because I was in college and he was at home. So, I couldn't really see him all the time. And my friends at Georgia that I hung out with, they were not in the same place that I was trying to get to. They were, if anything, pulling me back into that world of sin that I was trying to get out of. And so I felt so alone. I felt like I had nobody that I could really see consistently that had the same mindset as me. And that's why I turned to God. He was what got me through that time. I had nobody else but him. And ultimately, I think that is a season that everyone in their life has to go through at some point. The season of isolation where you really feel alone to the point where you have nobody but him. And that's when you learn that he's all you need. And so he was all I had. And at the time, I was a loser. I didn't have anything going for me. I had a buzz cut because I did that, the whole thing after me and her broke up. And then I was just fat because I had, been drinking, been eating a shit ton of just junk food, binge watching Sunday Night Football. Really, that whole period of my life where I was doing nothing after the breakup, that next month, it was just like, make it to tomorrow, gamble on NFL games like Prize Picks. I was a Prize Picks demon, bro, and I was betting on everything. I was just binge eating while I watched football, watching the college football playoffs, playing Xbox. That was about it for all of winter. And obviously, I was still going to the gym. I've been going to the gym every day pretty much for years, but there's a difference between going to the gym and training. And that is what I learned when I gave my life to Jesus, or when I started seeking after him. I learned that there's a difference between showing up to the gym as an excuse to eat unhealthy and showing up to the gym to actually better yourself. So that's what I started doing in 2025. And then, I started to make progress from there, like real legit progress, because it made me want to clean up my diet. It made me want to try, do it for a reason, train with intention. So as I started to develop my relationship with Jesus, I started to become more serious about my training in the gym. And that's really what sparked the sort of self-development phase that I was in. Because I don't think that you can really work on yourself and, go through a phase of personal development without God. I think he is absolutely 100% necessary in that phase. And if you don't have him, everything you're doing is really for nothing at the end of the day, because, we're not taking our body with us when we die. We're not taking anything with us. All we'll have is him. And so that's the only thing that really matters ultimately. So I learned that, this year. But as I started to develop that relationship, it made me more serious about everything that was going on in my life. It made me more driven. It gave me more discipline. It made me a better man. I started to clean up my diet. And then when Lent came around, my church participated in Lent. And so I decided I'm going to do something challenging this year, and I'm going to give up processed foods and alcohol. And alcohol was less challenging. I've never drank like that consistently to where it was an issue for me to give it up for 40 days, but it was just the first time that I had really made that commitment to, abstain from giving into those vices. And so I had a problem with food before because, like I said, I binge ate all the time in the winter. And so giving up those really allowed me to learn that, I don't need these vices. All I need is God. It was a crazy mindset shift. And throughout that process, I started to become way closer to him, because as I sacrificed my vices, I turned to him more and more rather than these worldly things, these idols, right? And then on April 3rd, I'm never going to forget this day, I was sitting in my bed watching a YouTube video about somebody's testimony, and then the next video that popped up was just a video about Jesus, and I turned it on, and it was just like a really long video about his story. I was watching it and I just started bawling. I just started crying. And I don't cry a lot. I really just don't feel like I'm capable of it a lot of the times. Even when I feel so upset that I want to cry, it just doesn't happen for me. But this time it happened, and I just broke down in my bed right over there. And it was the first time that I ever felt the Spirit inside me. And all of a sudden, it felt like I knew I was reborn and I had new life. And I know that was the day I was reborn, because everything in my mind was completely different. I found my purpose. The Holy Spirit showed me what I was meant to do with my life. And that was to help people. I had always been a follower and not a leader. But ever since that day, everything that I viewed about this world has changed. And I don't any longer want to be a follower. I want to be a leader. I want to be a great man that inspires others, that helps others better their lives and achieve their goals. And, the way that I saw fit best to do that was through fitness, because fitness is what I know best. Fitness is what I've been doing for the last, 3-4 years, aside from those short times in my life like this winter where I was terribly depressed and not focusing on it. But fitness is my passion. It's what I've centered my life around for the most part. And I knew that I was called to help others do the same thing and help impact their lives. And as I started to become even stronger in my faith after seriously giving my life to Jesus on that night, April 3rd, I realized that I can do this with my faith too. I can help others the same way that the Lord helped me, by allowing them to turn to Him, pointing them in the direction. And I'm never going to be like the kind of guy that goes up to someone and tells them, tries to convince them to turn to Christianity. But, I can plant the seed, I can spread the word, I can try to be a great person and set a good example for what that's supposed to look like. Because a lot of people out there, they don't do that. They give, non-Christians a really bad idea of what this faith is. And they make it seem hateful and hostile. And that's not what I want to be. I don't want to be toxic. I want to show a good example for what that's supposed to look like. And that is what I've been passionate about ever since. It's ultimately my life's mission to help other people at this point. And if I can do that for the rest of my life, I will find fulfillment forever. That is what fulfills me. I used to not know what I was supposed to do, but Jesus gave me purpose. He gave me direction, and He gave me a new life. And so now I take fitness very seriously. I'm planning on competing in my first bodybuilding show next summer. So I'm training for that. And it's been great because ever since I turned to Jesus and really made an effort to give up the vices that held me back, like junk food, alcohol, drugs, time-wasting distractions, it's been easier for me to be healthy. It's been easier for me to actually achieve my fitness goals because I haven't held junk food in such a high regard. I don't find satisfaction from those worldly things anymore like I used to. So it makes it way easier for me to just eat for fuel and for muscle growth rather than eating for enjoyment. I don't get my enjoyment from food anymore. I don't want to get my enjoyment from any of these worldly idols, right? So it really goes hand in hand. As I have been more dialed with my training, my diet, I've been more dialed with Jesus, and I find my fulfillment more from Him when I'm cutting off these other things that I know I don't need to be doing. I do think that there's sort of a positive feedback loop there where as I become more tuned in my relationship with the Lord, everything else starts to fall in place because I don't do those distractions anymore. And that is why I think that everyone needs Him. And if they really want to maximize their life, they've got to find their fulfillment from Him. So that's kind of where I'm at now. And now I have the ability to help people. I have the ability to help people with their fitness, with their relationship with God. That's my life now. And that's what I love doing. I love what I do. I wake up every day excited to get to work. And I never had that before. I rolled out of bed at 10:30, doom scrolling TikTok back in the winter before I had Him, before I had purpose. But now I wake up every morning and jump out of bed because I'm ready to start my day. I'm ready to get to work. And I love it. Jesus gave me purpose. Jesus gave me that spark. Jesus helped me become more disciplined in every way possible. And so that is applied to my faith. Obviously, that is applied to my physical health in the gym, and it's applied to my business. He gave me everything. And now it's time for me to help lead others to him and to at least point them in the right direction towards him and to help them. And that's what I'm doing with my business. I'm helping people grow physically and spiritually. I'm helping people take care of their physical health while prioritizing him exactly the way that I did, exactly the way that I came to be the man I am now. That's pretty much my story of how I came to Jesus. And now I am a man of Christ, and it's completely different than the man I was last year. So hopefully a lot of people can relate to maybe where I was at, or maybe where I'm at now. Maybe you've had a similar situation go on in your life, but I think that it's really powerful for us to be able to share what happens in our life and our testimonies and how the Holy Spirit came in and allowed us to be reborn. So I have new life now, and I love my life, and I'm so grateful that I made the change and I made the decision to give it to him, because before that, I don't know where my life was headed. It was headed nowhere. I definitely wouldn't be here right now doing this if I didn't have him. So now I just want to spread that. I want to help everyone else, and that is what I'm going to continue to do for the rest of the foreseeable future. I appreciate y'all for listening to my story, and if you want to see more content, subscribe. I'm going to be posting on YouTube more. Obviously, I post about the gym a lot and God, especially over on Instagram, which if you want to follow that is Luke Frierson _ That's where I offer my coaching as well. So if you are interested in working with me, you can DM me Renew. But other than that, you guys are the goats if you stuck around here. But I appreciate y'all for watching. I will see y'all in the next video.